Okay then, right, this is my Rotobord, and I'm just recording this because there's a couple of good techniques here, because this big disc is the table. It's only made of 1mm, like a dye bond material, so aluminium on plastic. I'll just see if I can hold that on. Drop something. So that's the table, and there's a centering pin there inside that mechanism. See it right in the center. I like the brake mechanism and the indexing mechanism on this, and I'm going to copy that onto my lathe, I think, because for one of my indexing systems it's really good. It's less fiddle than my lathe, although more difficult to implement. So I'm glad this was broken. When it arrived, I'm saying that this was probably broken, and that little disc that I just dropped, hold on, is the indexing, and that goes on a 14mm. There's a nut with a 14mm shaft coming out of it, and this aluminium plate goes onto that, and that's what keeps this centered. But of course that means that has to be exactly centered on this disc, and there are three little locators, I suppose, at 120 degrees apart. So I've turned a disc that fits it. I thought it fitted exactly, but it had a wobble, so I've used some very thin plastic off a blown plastic package, which is just a household shim, to take up that slack. Now it doesn't move at all. That's a technique I learned from watching radio repairs, how they center the cone of the radio has to center exactly over the little bit the little dome in the middle of a speaker, and there's hardly any clearance there. Beer can or pop can is very thin. That makes good shims, and I keep a little stock of household shims. Playing cards are a bit thicker, but they make a good shim, 1/4 or 1/3 millimeter. So, you know, don't panic. I made this little disc on my lathe, 6mm ply, and then a 14mm spigot coming out of it for this to locate onto. So that has located that dead center on the big disc, assuming that the manufacturer got this right. Now I can tell that these were originally just held on with a bit of epoxy, because there's little drizzles of epoxy there, and what I suspect is that epoxy bond has broke. So I'll rough mine up. I'll rough everything up so that it gets a better bond when I epoxy this now. Whoops. Well, it came out of there. I'll get it back in a minute. Hold on a sec. And the reason I'm doing this now is so that I only have to mix epoxy once, because this is the overarm for my pin router. And I'm going to reinforce that. Needs 2 holes drilled in it, and it's not straight, it's at an angle. So I'm going to epoxy this aluminium plate in there. So I only got to mix epoxy up once by doing both of these jobs at once. That's my plan. I'm going to epoxy that in there, drill the holes, then counterbore them so that there's a flat square to the back of this, which I'll need to tighten it up, otherwise the nuts will pull it out of line. So I'm doing this right in order like this. Now the other thing about this is, when we had that apart, there was a little on that locking mechanism, indexing mechanism, there's like a little pin that these index against when it's in the right position, and it's in indexing mode. Now I'm not going to put a lot of effort into lining that up because this isn't very clever really. I mean, there are 30 degrees, then a jump of 60 degrees, then 30 degrees, and so you can get 90 degrees, you can get some, you know, it's partial, it's not great. Anyway, so I will be rebuilding this. I'll be rebuilding this whole thing and just using the parts off of it that I can't make. So that fits exactly on there. And I can see where it was broken because there's a gouge around there, and that's from a little adjustment pin for the indexing in there. There's like a little screw, and that's been gouged in the back of that. So this has been broken for sure. Anyway, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to make a brass nut with the pin to centre this to replace the nut that was in there because that wasn't a very good bearing surface. Anyway, I'll do this and then I'll be able to show this thing working finally. I know it's brand new, but I'm glad it was broken because I got to see some good little ideas, and I'll be remaking it. I'll be using 6mm die bond, building a frame and just using the parallel arm and the face of the board for the printing. Oh, and all these little vernier and measuring markers, I'll reuse those in the one I make. That won't be just yet, I'll need some time because that's not going to be a quick project obviously. So that's my method for recentering this. Look at that, it's so cold, my nose is running. So I'll do that, and when this is working you'll see it working, and when my pin router's working soon, I'm close to finishing both of those projects. I can show that working and do some projects with that. Thanks for watching.